Welcome back to another morning where we are here at Christ Table working through our Bible study, 7 weeks long, called The Book. My name is Kevin Young. I have the privilege of serving at Christ Table as lead clergy. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, who we are, what we do, then you can visit the URL that is right up there, www.christstable.today. If you are on the margins of faith communities in your area, or maybe you've even walked away, consider yourself an evangelical, or perhaps are disappointed, disillusioned, or done with the church, then you are the type of person who oftentimes finds Christ Table as a home for faith exploration and formation. Now, if you'd like more information about this study in particular, not just Christ Table, then that URL right there in front of me, go.christstable.today/thebook, has a couple of things that I want to point out there that you can get for yourself during the study. There is a guide that will tell you each and every day's readings and when they happen and how you can be a part in joining us. But there's also a PDF that is an entire book of study guide material to help you through this study with questions, to help you go deeper. Also, if you have children or youth in your family or around you, then there are questions and things to help them navigate this, as well as background material. You can download that absolutely for free right there at that URL. If you'd like a printed copy of that PDF, this is the exact same as the PDF. You can get it for free there. But if you want a printed copy of this, then we can get it to you. There's a link there where you can get that and some other spiritual formation resources by helping partner with us financially. Cost is really low, but it does help us financially whenever you receive the materials because it helps us keep this going. And where we are going today is to the wisdom literature of the Bible. Wisdom literature are the books, maybe you've heard of some of these: Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Psalms. Now, we've worked through a few of these books in wisdom literature, but today we find ourselves working through Ecclesiastes in the wisdom literature. We're going to use chapter 3, verses 9 through 15 as kind of our microcosm of the larger book of Ecclesiastes. Not a lot of people are familiar with Ecclesiastes, even if you are someone who grew up in church, or maybe you are embedded deeply in a Christian faith community. You still may not have that much transparency into Ecclesiastes, what it is, what it says, the point of it, because many pastors and churches avoid this book. We probably shouldn't avoid anything that is in the text of Scripture, should kind of face it, even if we don't understand it. But the truth of the matter is the book of Ecclesiastes isn't avoided quite so much because it's difficult to understand. The book of Ecclesiastes is avoided most oftentimes because it is just depressing. It is kind of an under the weather, gray cloud above kind of book. And so a lot of pastors and churches kind of avoid it, don't end up preaching about it. But one of the things that I have found in the book of Ecclesiastes, and it's a very short book, is that it is kind of true to life. And for people who struggle with faith, for people who struggle with religion, for people who struggle just in general with life not treating them well, this book resonates. This book resonates with culture. This book resonates with young people. This book is perhaps one of the most real, if not the most real book in the text of Scripture. And so whenever we come to it, it's helpful for us to kind of have that understanding of this book. Now, at the beginning, one of the phrases, and this is actually the second verse in the book, is this meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is utterly meaningless. Everything is what? Say it one more time, just so we understand. Oh, it's utterly meaningless. Not just meaningless, but utterly, completely meaningless. And this gives you kind of a view from the get-go as to what this book is going to be about. And then from there forward, really, in Ecclesiastes, it is just multiple ways of saying that life is utterly meaningless, that it is depressing, that no matter how good you are or how much good you do, everybody ends up dirt in the ground at some point anyway, that everything is utterly meaningless. Now, there are some texts in the book of Ecclesiastes that are very well known. One of them is, there's a time for everything. There's a season for everything, to live, to die, to laugh. Oftentimes it will be read at funerals, but if you read the context around it, it's a little depressing. They cut out the part that is good, helpful, and leave out the parts that are depressing. But this is the point of the book. And many of us walk away from life with this same output, that life is utterly meaningless. No matter how hard I try, no matter how far ahead I get, it ends up that I end up having to go further back and start all over, because life doesn't work the way I want it to. And it certainly doesn't work in my favor. Maybe other people receive favor and all good things come to them, but it doesn't work that way for me. Meaningless. There are many people, I've been one of them many times, to say that life is meaningless, utterly meaningless. So what I want to do is I want to jump into actually the text that comes right after that. There is a time for everything. I want to jump into the text right after that, and then kind of wrap up with one more observation to maybe help you if and when you ever read the entire book of Ecclesiastes. And again, it's not that long. So what do people really get for all of their hard work? It's been saying there's a time to work, there's a time to harvest, and there's a time to not harvest. So what do people really get for all of their hard work? And the Bible kind of starts off, right, with this idea of working hard, that man shall toil the ground to keep a living. And what do people really get for all of that? The writer of Ecclesiastes says, I have seen the burden that God has placed on us all. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. So there is a burden, but also there is beauty. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people can't see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So there is a sense of something greater in the human heart, but no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be able to see everything that God has done and plans to do from beginning to end. So knowing all of this, I concluded that there's nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. Or you might know this verse by a different phrase: eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow we die. So I concluded, after looking at all of the things on earth and all of the things that people said would give them peace, from religion to relationships to work to children to all of these things, I looked at all of these things and I concluded that really there's just be happy. Enjoy yourself for as long as you can. People should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor. These are the gifts from God. Don't hold back. Enjoy these gifts from God. If everything is utterly meaningless, then you might as well try to make as much meaning as possible out of the things that are gifts from God. The fruit of the vine, wine, beer, alcohol, whiskey, bourbon. And I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it, or nothing can be taken away from it. God's purpose, and we've talked about this the last few days in the wisdom literature, that God's purpose is that people should fear him. Again, that fear there is not a fear of scaredness. That fear there is awe and reverence, is what that word means. What is happening now has happened before, and it will happen again in the future. The wheel goes round and round, because God makes the same things happen over and over again. And this is depressing. But if you read Ecclesiastes, what you're going to see is that there is a delineation. There's a line that Ecclesiastes kind of draws for us to this utterly meaningless world in which we live. And it says, under the sun, thus implying that there is something on the other side of the sun, something over the sun. And so meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is utterly meaningless under the sun. Here under the sun, it is better to eat, drink, and be merry, to enjoy the gifts that God has given you, because tomorrow you will die. What good does work do for you? God has placed this eternity in human hearts, but you're not able to see it all. You're only able to see what's under the sun. You're only able to enjoy for now what is under the sun. Utterly meaningless, the things that are under the sun. But Ecclesiastes continues to kind of point us to the reality and the existence of this God who lives beyond the sun. So we here in our existence are under the sun, but there is long-term hope for something more, for something greater, for something different, for something better. And so wisdom literature, the wise, recognize that in the short term, everything is utterly meaningless. It is better to just simply eat, drink, and be merry. Enjoy what you can when you can have it, if all you're living for is under the sun. But the wise person will recognize that that eternity that is placed in the human heart is an indication that there is more than just this meaningless existence, that there is something beyond the sun, or if I can say it differently, that there is something over the rainbow. Well, that's all I have time for today, and that concludes this week where we've been talking about wisdom literature. Next week, we will jump right into the book of Job, a laser focus on one of the wisdom lit books. And Job is complex, but Job is also important. So until that time, happy reading.